Part 2 of lesson 1 is on ethics. So again, we're thinking about from a leadership point of view and thinking about how ethics and ethical behaviors should work across an organization. So a simple kind of definition of ethics is a moral code that guides a person's choices and behaviors. However, ethics is important from a leadership perspective because we've said before, leaders will be seen as trusted people, and therefore they have a level of wider social responsibility. However, it must be kind of noted that certainly a commercial business needs to make a profit. It needs to help maximize the return to shareholders. And that can cause some ethical dilemmas for leaders. And a couple of examples here would be, should manufacturing be outsourced to a factory accused of exploiting workers' rights if it will make labor costs cheaper? So you can see here that from a profit point of view, manufacturing to this factory will be cheaper because of the labor costs. But actually, from a more social point of view, are we exploiting employees because of the lower cost of labor? So there's an ethical dilemma there for a leader to kind of consider. Similarly, should we cut down thousands of trees to make space for expansion of a manufacturing operation, given that it will harm the environment? So again, you've got that kind of profit motive of wanting to expand and develop new operations, but then an environmental responsibility because of the impact on the local environment. So these are some of the ethical dilemmas that leaders will face within an organization, and it's a challenge. Okay, it's very much a challenge and again, the larger the organization becomes, and with global operations, this challenge becomes greater. So what would we expect from a leadership point of view in terms of their ethical values? Well, honesty. They should tell the truth. They should not mislead their stakeholders. Remember, once you reach that position of leadership, there will be many stakeholders. So we would expect from an ethical point of view that you will be honest in your dealings with different groups of stakeholders. Acting with integrity. So always kind of being morally acting with good morals, sticking to your principles, again aligning that with the organizational values as well. Acting with responsibility. So accept praise when praise is due, but also accept blame when maybe the organization has not acted in the right way. So take responsibility. Being accountable. So, don't be passing the buck, as it were. Take accountability for the actions that you have initiated. Being transparent, so making sure that you give information to stakeholders and relevant information. Don't try to hide things. Be transparent at all times. And be fair. So again, you may be operating with different stakeholder groups. So trying to be fair with all different stakeholders across the organization, and not being more advantageous to one stakeholder group to another, which again can be a challenge, like we've just seen with some of the dilemmas where you are wanting to look after maybe the shareholders and maybe doing a disservice to the environment or to your employees. So again, what we would expect is trying to be fair to all stakeholder groups. So there's an example question here, which is typical of an SBL style question around ethics. So you can see here, this is a quote from an employee at a company, and the quote says, "This year, the CEO introduced an employee satisfaction survey. We were assured that the survey would be anonymous, but were asked to give details of the department we work in, our age and our gender. Questions in the survey were about a few specific areas and did not give employees the opportunity to give feedback on areas of concern. A few weeks after the survey, my department manager began making comments to me such as, "If you don't like it, go find something better." I felt as though this was a consequence of my survey responses. The CEO presented the results of the survey and used misleading graphs to make results appear better than they were. So you can see that this employee is not very happy. They've believed that they had the opportunity to provide feedback, and that feedback was going to be anonymous, but then because of the information that was gleaned from the survey and because of their manager's comments, they're now feeling a little bit probably demotivated, a little bit angry as well. So what you're being asked to do is analyze the CEO of this company's, analyze their ethical behavior in relation to the design, implementation, and presentation of the survey results. So the way that you could do that is you can structure your answer using some of them values that we were talking about on the previous slide. So if you looked at it from an honesty perspective, the CEO has not acted with honesty, because actually they said that the survey would be anonymous, but by the nature of the information that they took from the survey, that probably was not as anonymous as it should have been. Have they acted with integrity? Well, probably not. Staff were led to believe the survey would be anonymous, but not only have staff been potentially identified, but then there's a little bit of intimidation there with some of the comments from the departmental manager. In terms of responsibility, the CEO had a responsibility to design this in such a way that it would be anonymous and give the staff an opportunity to share their feedback on anything really. The employee has said, actually, there was only certain areas questioned within the survey. So they've not acted in the best way possible here. Accountability. Failure to allow staff to give feedback on areas of concern could be perceived as the CEO failing to take accountability for problem areas. So they've kind of tried to manipulate potentially the survey questions in order to get better answers, hence why they've used some of the misleading graphs. Maybe they've not been accountable for how their employees are feeling working in that organization. And a definite issue from a transparency point of view, because they've not accurately portrayed the results. There's been potentially some misleading graphs. So you can see there from an SBL question point of view, you get certain information, you're asked to look at that information, and then your answer is better if you have some form of framework to answer. So here we've used the ethical values as a framework to assess the CEO's ethical behavior in relation to this survey. So I've mentioned stakeholders several times. It's very much a part of that leadership role in terms of satisfying stakeholders, but in particular from an ethical point of view as well. So it's recognizing, remember, stakeholders is anyone that has an interest in the organization. Some examples there include customers, workers, shareholders, society. But remember, when you look at any organization, stakeholders could be varied. So you've got to make sure that the stakeholders that you recognize are particular for that organization. There are some generic stakeholders like employees and customers, but there are some very specific stakeholders depending on the makeup of a particular organization. So remember, you need to think about that. So some examples of ethical management from a customer point of view would be, don't take advantage of customers. So don't charge inflated prices to customers as an example. So if you've got an opportunity, maybe because of maybe there's a lack of supply in the market, and then you've thought, actually, this is an opportunity to increase our prices because our customers can't go anywhere else. Well, again, from a profit point of view, that's better, but are you taking advantage of your customers at this period of time by charging them significantly higher prices? So that's a ethical kind of management issue. From a worker point of view or an employee, making sure you respect their terms of their contract, and especially in terms of health and safety, etc. So follow legal processes. So don't manipulate that in order to help the organization respect the employees' rights. Shareholders, avoid unnecessarily risky strategies to protect their investment. So again, that could be something that sometimes leaders are looking at, maybe acquisition opportunities. Sometimes the motives for those may not be in the best interest of the shareholders. There may be too much risk involved, even though it might maybe increase the profile of the leader. It may be a little bit too risky for the shareholder. So that's a responsibility on leaders to make sure that they're looking after their various stakeholders. Corporate social responsibility, or CSR. This is where an organization should act ethically to benefit society at large. This is a concept that's been around for many years, particularly relevant maybe for larger organizations. So as organizations grow, they have not just their responsibility internally, but a responsibility to a wider corporate, a wider social group of maybe individuals, communities, etc. So you do require ethical leadership to make sure a CSR program operates. And the example there on screen is about installing solar panels to reduce your carbon footprint and to help mitigate climate change. So that'd be something you could do, which is still maybe more expensive in the short term, but environmentally more beneficial. So you're acting more socially in terms of the decisions that you are making.